Hi, so it's live on LinkedIn on a Wednesday, and I'm Debs Jenkins, and we're going to be talking about publishing and some of the particular issues, some of the perspectives that are getting people stuck on getting their books written and published. So this is session 2. We did session 1 last Wednesday, and this is session 2, which is about stop guessing, how to work out who really needs your book, so that rather than guessing, you can make some stronger decisions, some better decisions that will make sure your book gets read. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, the common advice that I hear an awful lot is that when you're thinking about writing a book, the common advice is to write for a target group or for an audience. And the common advice is to use an avatar or a persona, or do your psychographics and your demographics and all of that. But what I'm going to contend and what I'm going to talk about today is that I'm not an avatar. I'm really not. I'm real. And I am absolutely, completely, totally special. So is your reader, and so are you. And when you write for avatars, for personas, you miss out something really, really important. That's what we're going to look at today. Why you shouldn't do this. Now, that common advice leads to a common problem, and that is that your book won't be read if you write it for everyone or for this vague demographic that you've kind of conjured up in your mind. So we need to get away from this common advice, which leads to a common problem. And how do we do that? That's what we're going to talk about. The common advice is wrong, because if you write for an imaginary reader, your book's not going to get read, because, well, imaginary reader doesn't exist. Guessing who your readers should be, doing the demographics, the psychographics, making stuff up, doing all the BS, behavioural science, not the other BS, doesn't work for writing a book. Now, I know there are times when it does work, and I'm not disagreeing with all the marketers out there who and the companies out there who this is their job and this is the stuff they do. I'm not disagreeing with you, but for writing a book, it's the wrong place to start. So what do you have to do to get your book written, to get your book bought, to get your book, more important than all of that, to get your book read? Because without it being read, it won't get actioned. The reader won't get the result that you've been promising. So what do we have to do? Now, I'm Deb Jenkins, just in case I'm just chattering about. I'm Deb Jenkins, and I was an electronics engineer, and I bring this whole engineering attitude and discipline, I suppose, vaguely disciplined, to everything that I do. So I try and put systems in place, frameworks, structures, and measure inputs, see what the outputs are. And I've been running my own businesses for the last 25 or so years. I'm very young, really. I founded my first publishing company in 2003, and then I exited from that in 2011. And now I run a specialist, really specialist magic cohort publishing company. If you want to know more, pop me a message. And over these years, I've brought more than 200 books to life, either personally, like breathed on them and created life. I've written them, I've ghostwritten them, I've rescued them, I've helped outline them, and I've published lots and lots and lots of books, hundreds of books. And the biggest problem I see with when anybody ever gets stuck writing their book is that they're writing it for everybody, or they're writing it for a persona. Those are the two biggest problems. If you're stuck writing your book, or if you've written a book that doesn't get read, it could be one of these two problems. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And that's what I want you to have an open mind for. Now, the wonderful Lisa has already asked a question, or made a comment. In fact, I'm going to put Lisa's magic comment. Lisa from Manchester. We were giggling earlier about where Lisa's from. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you want to disagree with me, don't disagree with me. No, if you want to disagree with me, if you want to add an idea or something that you've seen that you think is pertinent, please do. And if I can, I'll add you in and do you a call out. So Lisa likes the idea of being special. Oh my gosh, I am so special, and so is Lisa, and so are you, and so are your readers. And when you don't treat your reader your one reader as a special person. You just treat them as a mass, as an imaginary mass of people, then it all goes poo-shaped. And I want to help you avoid that. So this is what we're going to talk about today. So I want you to forget about avatars. Just completely just wipe them from your mind. I want you to forget about personas. I want you to forget about doing the demographics and the psychographics and the holographics or whatever it is. Just forget about it all. Forget about writing for groups of people. Just stop doing it. Just wipe it from your mind. I want you to write for one special person with one problem that your book can solve. And I know, and it happens quite frequently, that people say to me, yeah, but what about all of the other people that my book could help? And don't worry about it. Those other people will, if you've done a really good job of writing for one person, those other people will be drawn to you. And not only that, but the one person that you've written for will tell them how cool your book is. What you don't want is 20 lukewarm readers. You want one loud, proud, special reader who is out there telling everybody how fantastic your book is. Okay, so by the way, don't believe anything I say. If you don't believe me, then listen to some of the science. So there's a guy called Nicholas Epley, and he wrote in his book Mindwise. He investigated all the research and came up with all the studies and looked at all the studies, did all the clever stuff. And he said that we can understand what strangers think, believe, and feel only 20% of the time. And with people we know, close friends, we understand what they think, believe, and feel 30% of the time. And then with couples, with our other halves, 35% of the time. Okay. So if we're doing avatars and we're imagining these people, and yet we only are 1 in 3 times when we think we know what our other half's talking about, we're actually correct, then how on earth are we going to ever be correct about what our imaginary reader wants? Okay, we need to be grounded in reality, in what we can see. So if you ask your other half, does my bum look big in this? 2 of the 3 times when you think they're thinking, yes, it actually does, you could probably be wrong. But the one time you probably won't be. So this problem of us not understanding what people think, believe, and feel, or only understanding that for 35% of the time, means that whatever you think is going on in your spouse's head, you're going to be wrong 2 out of 3 times. You're going to be wrong about guessing what's in your target reader's head. So just don't. It's like wipe the whole idea of avatars and coming up with a target reader and imagining and detecting their thoughts, because these imaginary people with their imaginary thoughts, their imaginary problems, their imaginary 2.5 kids, and their imaginary money do not exist. Okay, so it sounds kind of silly when I say it like that, I know, but what I really want you to take this on board, because when you write for imaginary people, then you will be wrong a lot more than you will right about what you are writing. Okay, so what should you do? So if I'm saying don't write for imaginary people, don't write for personas, don't come up with an avatar, don't come up with psychographics and demographics and all of that, what should you do? Well, you should start with one real person. I'm very, very bossy about this. Start with one real person, a real person, and you write their name down, and then you speak to them, you ask them questions, and you seek to understand them. Then you ask them some more questions, and then you get feedback on your understanding, because what you may think you've understood, you didn't understand. So you get more feedback. And you don't play the mind reading game and the psychographics game and the guessing game. You do everything you possibly can to get some really accurate information from the one reader that should read your book. Now, if you write your book for one special reader, really concentrate on their problems and their most important problem and how you can solve it, then your book will be read. It will at least be read by one person. And that one person, if you've done a really great job, will go and tell other people. Okay, so Sounds like a bit of hard work. It's kind of easy. Now, I know, I've been a marketer. I am a marketer. I have played the demographics, psychographics games. I have printed out my avatar sheets and filled it all in on all of the personas. I've done that all. I've done it lots of times. And it feels like you're making progress. It feels like you're doing the right thing. It feels like it's the right thing to do. But let me promise you, it's not. You want to speak to one real person and resolve their most important problems. And I've got a tool for you to help you. Last week when we did the publishing session, last week I showed you a tool, and it was the minimum valuable asset tool. So it was a way of deciding whether you should write a book or not, and what should be in there, and how big it should be or small, and how to make it an asset. Okay, and today I'm going to just share with you very briefly another tool, which is called the Thought Leadership Canvas. And the Thought Leadership, this looks complicated, but it's a very, very simple way of capturing all your thoughts and organizing them into ideas, into boxes, so that you can actually write a book. Now, with people that go through my writing program, we use the Thought Leadership Canvas for the whole book. We use the Thought Leadership Canvas for each chapter. We use the Thought Leadership Canvas for each framework or tool or landing page or quiz or diagnostic. We use the Thought Leadership Canvas for pretty much everything. It's just a really fast way of hand scribbling your ideas and your thoughts so that they're captured. Now, how might you use this for understanding what your one reader needs from you? You would have a copy of this while you're sitting down chatting to them on the phone or in person, real life. You can do that now. And you would be filling in these boxes. If you want a copy of the Thought Leadership Canvas, just pop me a message and I'll send you a copy. You print lots of them out. I have a digital version and in Miro, if you would prefer a Miro version. If you want one, you just pop me a message and I'll get a copy to you. Now, what are we going to write on this Thought Leadership Canvas? How are we going to with our one real person, how are we going to get this information out of them? What are we looking for? What are we tracking for? How do we know we're going to write the right book? That's what we're going to talk about next. And the answer to all of that big question is you have to stay with the problem. Okay, so your book, if you want a book to be read and shared and talked about and referred and quoted, then you need to actually resolve a problem. You need to fix something that's really important for the reader. And I call this the most important problem. And usually you're looking for like a domino problem, a problem where if you can solve this problem, you'll have a domino effect on everything else that's going on for them. And that's how you know it's the most important problem. And then, after that, you may be able to solve other problems for them with your services and your programs and your coaching and whatever else you're doing. But your goal with your book is to solve their one most important problem. Now, I class these most important problems into 3 categories, and you'll have heard of at least one of these categories before. The other 2 are made up, but you'll have heard of at least one. So let's start with the one you've probably heard of, and it's this idea of a bleeding neck problem. Now, one of the people I really admire is Louis Grenier, and he talks a lot about bleeding neck problems. And it's been around for a while. The idea of a bleeding neck problem is that they're really easy to spot, and they're easy to spot because, well, there's usually quite a lot of blood and a relatively enthusiastic motivation to solve the problem. My neck's bleeding, I could do with a fix. Okay, bleeding neck problems. These are my silly examples. They're lose weight before I have another heart attack. So it's not lose weight because I want to look pretty. It's because, I don't want another heart attack. Get more clients now before we go out of business. We're going to have to lay people off. We're going to have to make our clients unhappy. We're going to go out of business. Stop sabotaging relationships before I get divorced again. That one's for me. So, this is a bleeding neck problem. It's going to destroy your life. It's bad. There's blood. You can see it. They are urgent problems, that they have a constraint, the word before, and life will be really pretty damn pants if you don't fix them. Okay, so that's one category of problem that your book could solve. And Peter just said, Peter Soderlind, sorry if I said your name wrong, because just said domino problem, brilliant. The domino problem is really awesome actually, because once you knock that one problem down, you might solve all these other problems around that they're also having. But if you go and solve one of these out here problems, it might not have any impact. And you're looking for the most impact with your book, and the most impact with all the things that you do, so that you can give people the biggest transformation. And Sophia has said, yes, please, she would like a copy of the Thought Leadership Canvas. I'll get back in touch with you, Sophia, and send you Thought Leadership Canvas. And before I go on, and Judy from Stroud, I think, has said that the Thought Leadership Canvases felt constraining at first, but now she's got used to using them. They keep her on track, and she finds it easy to get in the flow of creative and useful writing. I think that is a really good point, Judy, because the Thought Leadership Canvases, it's like, why is Deb constraining me to these small boxes with these areas that I've got to fill in? And, why is she constraining me? But the reason why I constrain with the Thought Leadership Canvas is because over here is all the stuff that's going on in your head, all the chaos, all the things you could do, all the problems you could solve, all the domino problems that you think might exist, all the people you think you could help. And it's a lot of chaos, and it's lots of stuff going on. And you want to get to creation. You actually want to create a book, in this case, talking about create a book, but if you wanted to come up with a program, or make an app, or do your website, or do a speech, and they're like these two halves of a problem, and this chaos side and this creation side. And the fastest and only way I found of getting from chaos to creation is to use constraints. And that's what the Thought Leadership Canvas does. It just stops your mind from spin wheeling, constrains you so that you can create something. Because it's when you create something, even if it's just an outline of your book or a title for your book, but when you create something, other people can give you feedback on it, and it's bouncing around in your head. It's like much more difficult to get any external feedback. So Judy, I agree with you. I used to be, before I came up with the Thought Leadership Canvas, I used to kind of like have pieces of paper and post. I still have that, by the way. Pieces of paper and post-its, and I'd have lots of ideas and no unified place to constrain them. And now with the Thought Leadership Canvas, I have lots of Thought Leadership Canvases, but I know I'm never going to lose one of my thoughts, and I can come back to them later. Okay, so 3 types of problems that you'll be looking for, and you're trying to find the most important problem for your one reader. Okay, so this is what we're heading to. And the first one, as I said, is this bleeding neck problem. It's really it's obvious, it's visible, and there is a lot of motivation to solve the problem. Another type, number 2, is what I'm calling a weeping wound problem. Okay, so they're kind of trickier to spot, and they're tricky to spot for yourself more than anybody. So if you've got this problem, a weeping wound problem yourself, you kind of like, you just keep limping on. It's like a rock in your shoe, and you just carry on walking because you've got places to go, and you carry on hiking up that mountain because you've got to get to the top, and you carry on and you carry on and carry on. But at some point, that weeping wound will turn into a bleeding toe or a bleeding foot. And your job when you're talking to your one reader is to find out if there are weeping wound problems or bleeding neck problems, and how close to becoming a bleeding neck problem the weeping wound is. Weeping wound problems are things like, how do I get and stay fit in my 50s? How do I outsource so I can spend more time with my loved ones? Okay, so this one, like for example, if I don't outsource, I can carry on. My loved ones still might love me, but it would be so much better if I could bring that weeping wound problem and get it resolved. And a bit of an existentialist type question here is, how will I know I've lived a good life? They're usually the weeping wounds are really, really, really important problems, and we tend to just like, we can carry on, we can carry on. And so your one reader, you've got to find if they have a weeping wound problem or a bleeding neck problem. Okay, so those are 2 types. The third type are what I call the 4 a.m. day brain problems. Okay, if you're a Brit, I live in Spain, and I don't go back to the UK very much, but when I went back for my dad's funeral about 6 years ago, couldn't sleep very well, funerals, you know, and switched on the telly at 2 o'clock in the morning, Dave Channel. In the UK, we have this thing, the Dave Channel, and the Dave Channel has reruns of comedy programs, lots of comedy programs, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning, switch on the telly, switch on the Dave channel, not the Dave Brain channel, that would be cool, the Dave Channel, and when I switched this on at 4 o'clock in the morning, there was the Only Fools and Horses episode where Dell falls through the bar. You know the one, okay? Dell falls through the bar, made me giggle, happy. The next night I still couldn't sleep, sleeping on the floor at my mum's, and 4 o'clock in the morning, switch the Dave Channel on, and it's Dell falling through the bar in Only Fools and Horses. Okay, these are the 4 a.m. Dave brain problems. They're the problems that you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning every bloody night thinking about. They're the problems that your one reader wakes up thinking about. Now, the thing about these problems is that we tend not to talk about them. Okay, we don't, I talk about everything, so most people know my problems. I've got lots, but most normal people tend not to talk about these problems. They're kind of the hidden ones. They're the ones that wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Am I good enough? Oh, will I succeed? How do I know I'm on the right path? What if I make a mistake? What if nobody loves me? All those sort of really crunchy problems that wake you up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And if you don't resolve them, well, you're going to wake you up the next day and the next night and the next night and the next night. And I call them the 4 a.m. Dave brain problems. No disrespect to any Daves out there. Hi, Daves, whoever's out there. It's not Daves. It's the Dave Channel. Okay, so you've got 3 types of problems. You've got the bleeding neck, disaster type problems, need a fix now. You've got the weeping wound, going to get worse over time if we don't fix them soon, but we can stumble on. And then you've got the 4 a.m. Dave brain problems. They're the ones that we tend not to talk about in polite company usually. Okay, now your book for your one reader needs to resolve one of those problems, and you need to find the one that is the domino problem, the most important problem, the problem that if you solve that one, you're going to give the reader a transformation, you're going to make them happy. Okay, and that's as simple as you can do it. Now, you cannot do that if you look at avatars and personas and psychographics. All you're doing is guessing. Don't guess, ask them questions. Judy's asked a fun question, which is, where is the off switch of the Dave Channel, please? I know, the Dave Brain Channel. When we find the off switch, well, we will be millionaires, Cowboy. Okay, so Rodney. But for right now, we just have to put up with, I think, and know that if we can solve the Dave Brain problems for other people, we'll be their saviors. We will be the people that they refer and trust, and our books will be the books that people recommend. Okay, so find the most important problem. It's probably a weeping wound, a bleeding neck, or a Dave brain problem. And once you find those crunchy problems, the most important problems, the domino one for your one reader, then you can start thinking about the solutions. And that solution might be a book. It's not always a book, but it might be a book. Okay, one of my 4 a.m. Dave brain problems, a recent one, is how did they train the cat to sit in the bath? Oh, seriously, anyway, really seriously, this is one of my problems. I've got 23 cats, so this is an important Dave brain problem. Okay, so Sophia has said, I so agree with the avatar thing. I believe we need to find the real issues. Agree. Sophia, I'm so with you on that. And it's we take advice from the sort of the marketing advice, which is avatars and personas and psychographics and demographics. And there are places for those activities and those techniques really are. It's not that those are bad techniques or bad ideas. It's that writing a book and deciding who you're writing the book for is it's one big giant step before that. And if you jump straight into avatars, straight into psychographics and demographics, you will miss what is the most important problem, and then your book won't get read, and your book won't get referred, and your book won't get shared, and you won't make those transformations that you're hoping to make. So yeah, thank you, Sophia. Right, okay. The one reader's most important problem is the most important question you should be answering in your book. They have a most important problem. That is what you should be looking at in your book. That is the answer you should be providing in your book. Anything else, so if you're doing anything else, if you're writing about anything else, that's ego getting in the way. And there is, if you want to write a book because you want to write a book, and it's, you've got your own personal reasons for doing that, not knocking that. But if you want to write a book that is referred, read, searched for, cited, shared, and makes an impact, then you need to get your ego out of the way and focus on their most important problem. Okay, so I'm going to shut up. If there are any more questions or any more comments, please pop them in the chat. I'm going to stay around for a couple of minutes. And next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about stop hoping, because one of the things that tends to happen is you write a book, yay, you've written a book, and you go through all of that. It's not a simple process. If you do it well, you will put quite a lot of energy and effort in. So you go through the whole process, you write a book, you might get it published, you might publish yourself, and then nobody reads it. Okay, and that is devastating, and I never want that to happen for any of my clients. So next week, we're going to look at how you stop hoping the right people will magically find your book, and we're going to build marketing in and create books that people are desperate to read, and they want to read, and they will read. Okay, so if there are no other questions, I got that done within 30 minutes. So if there are no other questions, I shall see you next Wednesday. If you want the Thought Leadership Canvas, if you're watching this on replay, I've had a few messages saying people are going to watch it on replay. If you're watching it on replay and you want the Thought Leadership Canvas, or you want the minimum valuable asset Venn diagram from last week, Thought Leadership Canvas from this week, pop me a message and I will send them to you. And if you've got private messages, pop me a message. I'm Debs, and I'll see you next week.